Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to the English section of 253 Talk, where you can explore ideas, challenge perspectives, and engage in meaningful conversations. I'm Hassan, your host, and here at 253 Talk, we don't just talk. And our goal is simple. We want to inspire, push people to take action, and help them rise by creating a platform where they can explore a variety of important topics. Whether it's leadership, education, entrepreneurship, or social change, this podcast is here to spark the conversations that matter. In today's episode, we're diving into a topic that plays a crucial role in Djibouti's future: English language education. We all know English is more than just a subject in school. It's a key to global opportunities, whether in business, education, or international collaboration. But how well is English being taught and learned in Djibouti? What are the challenges students and professionals do face? And most importantly, how can we improve our approach to learning English? To discuss those questions, we have a very special guest, the English Language Fellow here in Djibouti, Ms. Susan Marshal from the state of Minnesota in the United States. We'll be discussing her experiences, the role of English in Djibouti, as well as the best ways to learn and improve it, and how does this language connect us to a world of possibilities. So, whether you're a student, a teacher, a professional, or just someone passionate about learning, this episode is for you. So stick around and let's get started. First of all, Ms. Susan, good evening, Ramadan Mubarak, and thank you for accepting our invitation and for sharing your experiences and thoughts about this topic.
Good evening, Hassan, and Ramadan Mubarak to you and the rest of the team as well. It is a great pleasure and privilege to be here. I have been thoroughly enjoying the 253 Talk episodes that have been released up until now, and I'm so happy to get to participate.
Thank you. Ms. Marshall, you have been living and working in Djibouti since 2019 in various roles focused on English language education development and cultural exchange. You have dedicated your time to teaching, mentoring, and enhancing English education. And just to tell people, I have once been your student. So my first questions go. Could you please tell us a little bit more about yourself, including your backgrounds?
Yes, absolutely. So, as you mentioned, I was born and raised in the state of Minnesota in the United States, in a small city near the border with Canada. And really, for as long as I can remember, I've always been really fascinated and intrigued by other cultures. I can remember reading my father's National Geographic magazines when I was a child and just dreaming about going around the world and meeting people from everywhere. And when I was in school, my family hosted a couple of foreign exchange students, and that really sparked this impulse to have foreign exchange opportunities. And so I eventually had the privilege of getting to go study and live in Argentina for a year, and then later in university in Chile and in India for part of my master's program. And then in the States, most of my work has been with people who've arrived as migrants and refugees, working both in teaching and administrative roles with different NGOs or ONGs, as we say in Djibouti, that do work helping those populations gain English and other skills that they need to integrate into the United States. And I so enjoyed getting to work with people from Somalia and other countries in East Africa when I was living in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and Seattle, Washington, which both have substantial Somali and other East African populations, that I was really motivated to try to come spend some time in this part of the world. And so when I got this opportunity to come work at the International School of Djibouti, which is an American international school here, I jumped at the chance, and I had a really great experience working there. Loved the school, but after a few years, I was ready for a new professional opportunity. So I learned about the English Language Fellows Program and decided to apply, and here I am.
Thank
You're
you
welcome.
for the detailed introduction about yourself. And now, the second question refers to your role as an English language fellow. Please tell us about it. What does being English language fellow mean, and what inspired you to become an English language fellow, especially choosing Djibouti as your place to work and share your expertise?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I had been in Djibouti, and so even though I was ready for a new professional role, I didn't want to leave Djibouti because I had been loving living and working here, and so I was hoping to find another opportunity in this part of the world. And I had known about the English Language Fellow program for quite a while. But it was in the back of my mind. But then when I was looking around for various opportunities, I heard from a mutual friend that one of the fellows who had been here had had a change of plans. And so they were looking for someone else for the upcoming year. So to back up a little bit, the fellowship program, it's one of the United States Department of State, which is the terminology that we use for our Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So they have hundreds of different cultural and professional exchange programs, both bringing Americans to other countries and bringing people from other countries to the United States. And so this program is one of those. And so we have 10-month fellowships, which can be renewed for a second year, which I happily was able to do. So this is year 2. And English language fellows are highly qualified English language education professionals who go out to different countries and they engage in many different projects. Teacher training is one of the most common activities, but fellows can do many different types of activities. Some are working with countries' tourism offices or militaries or police forces, for example. The majority are working more in the domain of education. So here in Djibouti, for example, my main activities are working with Crippen on helping the team there create the new English language textbooks. And I do some teacher training at Menfop's Center for Teacher Training. And then I do some work at the University of Djibouti. I get to teach some administrative and other personnel professional English classes, and I facilitate an English club for some of the university students. And then in addition to that, I get to do some work with programs at the U.S. Embassy's American Corner and the Chamber of Commerce and some associations. And I get to work a little bit with a group of volunteers from Camp Lemonnier who facilitate English language discussion groups too. I give some coaching and training and advice to them. So it's wonderful. I get to work with so many different people in various parts of Djibouti and meet a lot of people and learn a lot.
Well, I guess that's a lot. I mean, it's interesting though. But based on your experience, how would you describe the current level of English language, of English proficiency among Djiboutians, and what common obstacles do the learners typically face?
So, from what I have experienced, there's a wide range of English proficiency levels here. There are some general differences I've perceived. I've found that in general, younger generations tend to have a higher proficiency level than older generations, and also people in the capital city tend to have a higher proficiency level than people in rural areas, which makes sense in terms of relative levels of English language exposure. But yeah, there's quite a wide range, and one factor that I imagine contributes to younger people having more English in general is that the English instruction has started earlier and earlier in Djibouti's public schools. So now it's starting at grade 3, and our goal is to have it start even earlier, but Djiboutians are getting more English from a younger age than they used to, even quite recently. And also, I've seen and had many conversations with young Djiboutians who are doing a lot of self study as well, whether that's following actual courses or English programs online, or whether that's something more casual, like engaging with English language films or TikTok accounts or YouTube videos, whatever the case may be, on their own. And some of the people I've met who have the best English language proficiency, that's a major part of how they've developed that, is seeking it out outside of formal education settings. And in terms of challenges, one that comes up a lot is the fact that even though English is proliferating rapidly in Djibouti, in terms of the overall language context, it's still relatively rare for Djiboutians to be able to find places to practice using English, especially speaking and listening. And my impression is that the demand for that far outweighs the supply. So there are thankfully more and more opportunities to learn English in addition to programs at schools, things like neighborhood English schools and some private institutes and a few places that are offering English language conversation practice. But I have the impression that many more people want that than there are seats or space available currently. And also, yeah, go ahead. In terms of English language resources, things like books or other physical resources that people can use, there are some English language books available in Djibouti, but still, I have the impression that there aren't nearly as many as there could be to meet the demand that exists for these.
Okay. How do you see enhanced English skills opening up new educational and career opportunities for Djiboutians? And if possibly, do you have any success stories or examples from your work that illustrate this potential?
So there are lots of aspects of how English can enhance people's possibilities and opportunities. So one is just cultural exchange. I believe that at the heart of language learning for the vast majority of people, whether we're talking about English or other languages, it's all about being able to connect with people. So the more languages you learn and the more proficiency you develop in language, the more possibility you have to be able to meet and interact and engage with people from different cultures. And through that, we can have more cultural exchange and understanding. And that has such immense benefits on both an individual and societal and global level. I would say these days more than ever, it's crucial to have cultural exchange and greater mutual understanding between people from different countries and cultures, and language, of course, helps to facilitate that. And then in terms of employment opportunities and career benefits, a lot of the more attractive work opportunities, not only in Djibouti, but in the region and the world, require a certain level of English proficiency. So if people develop greater proficiency in English, that can open up a lot of doors in terms of which types of education and employment opportunities are available to them. Here in Djibouti, that might be working for international NGOs, multinational corporations, the maritime, logistics, telecommunications sector, lots of the foreign military bases and diplomatic communities. English can really help people to get opportunities there. And then, of course, on a regional level, English can really facilitate interacting with different groups around East Africa, because most of the other countries here are Anglophone. And then, of course, going abroad too. English is the lingua franca of much of the world, so being able to do business or even engage online. Most of the internet is in English, so it can really help people also access information and resources online. And then in terms of education as well, a lot of English language exchange programs, including through the US Department of State, but also other Anglophone countries, knowing English can give people more possibilities to participate in those programs, and then, of course, to go abroad to study in Anglophone countries if that's something that's of interest to them.
No. If I'm not wrong, it's been almost 7 years you've been living in Djibouti. So, what have been the most significant challenges you've encountered while working in Djibouti, both in adapting to the local context and in promoting English language education?
So, in terms of adapting to the local context, it's been fairly minimal. The biggest challenges are really mostly having to do with a few aspects of the physical environment. So, the heat, everyone talks about the heat. It's there, it gets pretty hot in Djibouti during certain months of the year. And it's my first time to live in a desert environment. So, that's taken a little bit of getting used to, having a lot of sand and dust and relatively less green, at least here in the heart of the capital city. Although I have loved getting to see the other aspects of Djibouti's physical environment in the regions, getting to see gardens and mountains. And of course, we have the beautiful beaches and ocean here, but sometimes the sand and dust, especially in the hotter months of the year, can be a little intense. And the mosquitoes, but other than that, honestly, and this is a big part of why I'm still here, it's been relatively easy to adapt to living and working here. And for sure, the biggest single factor in that is Djibouti's people. I have found that in general, Djiboutians are incredibly warm and kind and generous and hospitable. And that makes it, as a foreigner, I do not take that for granted for a minute, because it changes everything in terms of your ability to have an overall positive experience just in terms of day-to-day life, and then in a professional capacity too, just to be able to collaborate and get to know your colleagues and partner on all sorts of different projects and initiatives, and have different doors open and get invitations to do lots of different activities. So I have many more positives than challenges when I think about my time in Djibouti.
Thank you. Thank you for your kind words. Now, looking ahead, what key initiatives or resources do you believe are most urgently needed to improve English language education in Djibouti? And how can local communities contribute to this progress?
So even though in Djibouti's education system, as I mentioned, English instruction has been introduced at younger and younger ages, I would love to see it start even younger. Why not pre-K or maternelle instead of grade 3, and having more hours of English instruction in schools every week, and having more English language resources for teachers and students, more professional development for English teachers, more English language media that's locally available, including on radio and television. Also having greater internet connectivity, particularly in the regions, so that people have greater access to the wealth of online English resources that are out there, including from the US Department of State. There's a vast library of American English. It's not just about American English, but there's this big library of free open access English learning and English teaching resources. And then there's the Open Network that offers free online massive open online courses, otherwise known as MOOCs. And of course, beyond that, there are many other English language resources that are freely accessible online. But if you don't have a steady internet connection, clearly that will make it more challenging to access such resources. And in terms of local involvement, one thing that has come up in conversation with a number of Djiboutians recently, and that I think sounds like a promising model, is why not start to have more English programming in places like the CDCs or other community organizations that are widespread and easily accessible to a lot of Djiboutians. I think that's a really exciting possibility to consider.
Thank you. Thank you for the input, and thank you again, Ms. Marshall. And we truly appreciate you for sharing your journey, your challenges, even though you just talked about the hits, and insights on English education in Djibouti. Your experiences remind us that with patient, innovative teaching methods and community support, we can overcome obstacles and drive positive change. And now, unfortunately, this insightful discussion comes to its end. But before I close it, Ms. Marshall, is there anything you would like to add?
I would just like to add, well, first of all, thank you again to you and the rest of the team. It's been such a pleasure and a privilege to get to participate in your amazing podcast and to get to talk a bit about English in Djibouti. And I would just want to add that after my several years here, and in particular getting to work more with the English education community in Djibouti as an English language fellow, I am continually inspired and impressed by the motivation and the dedication and the passion of the English language educators in Djibouti. Even though their numbers are relatively small, they are doing such amazing work. And I commend them for that, and it gives me a lot of hope for the ever increasing quality and quantity of English language education in Djibouti, and by extension, the opportunities that that will open for more Djiboutians on both an individual and a societal level. So the future is bright.
Well, great. I thank you personally and also on behalf of the rest of the team. Dear listeners, after our enlightening conversation today, it's clear that the power of a language goes far beyond grammar and vocabulary. It builds bridges between cultures and opens doors to new opportunities. Thank you for joining us on this episode of 253 Talk, where we strive to inspire and empower Djiboutians to embrace growth and seize opportunities. Please stay engaged, keep learning, and we look forward to bringing you more thought-provoking discussions in our next episode. Goodbye.